Alright, it's time to talk about unicorns, or Monoceros, the mythical slash real animal of our past that I believe roamed all over the place, just like so many animals do now and have done in our lifetime and gone extinct. In my experience, it seems that any animal that has something of value to the human race that can create a lot of money for someone ends up having a very short existence on this planet, and it's terribly sad, but this horn of a unicorn that's decorated very artistically appears very similar to elephant tusks, rhinoceros horns, and so many other things that have become illegal trades. Here's perhaps one of the oldest from Lascaux Cave, the oldest unicorn. If that red line coming out of the head of that horse is actually a unicorn horn, then this would be one of the first depictions, and these caves are always a wonder to think about, just what was going on in the heads of these artists back at this time. And if they were seeing these things, chances are they weren't using their imagination, since everything else was real. Now this is a very interesting thing that's from the side of a casket that I believe is carved out of ivory. This carving is from a jewelry casket called the Castle of Love from about the 1330s, and the section in the book that I have found this from refers to it as, the scenes on the casket's side include the famous medieval allegory of female virtue, the legend of the unicorn, a white horse with a single ivory horn. Only a virgin could attract the rare animal, and any woman who could do so thereby also demonstrated her moral purity. So the eternal question here is whether this animal is real or mythological and symbolic and allegorical and archetypal or something. Here are some old tapestries and old images of these amazing beasts who have so many tales about them, it's really tough to tell. I'm going to go over some text in a little bit, but just enjoy this art and take a look at these scenes. I mean, they were a big part of life. These you don't just nowadays really make up, I guess we do now with the unicorn obsession of popular culture, but if it's all based in reality, at some point they probably were here. It doesn't seem like too far-fetched of a creation of Earth and the animals that we've seen. There's narwhals, there's so many different things with one horn, and this is everywhere, and the stories about it, the myths about it, the details that encompass and that have survived the test of time through stories and whatever, whether they're true accounts or not, are all very interesting. And this is Harappan from thousands of years ago. So I have a feeling these were a very dominant part of the earth, and at one point we exploited them too much, and they're all gone now. And there's probably some unicorn relic or a horn of ivory and magic in somebody rich's basement or safe vault somewhere. I can almost guarantee it. And one of the other great depictions of the Monoceros is in the stars and the constellations, and one of the books I found was talking about how the Egyptians developed all the constellations and all the symbols, and then the Greeks later transformed them and added swords and nooses and all this stuff. But this refers to the Monoceros as a purely fictional animal and almost kind of insults the people that think anything otherwise. Yet it is ancient, and it talks about some of its ancient origins, so how do they really know? If an animal is extinct and it was existed at one time and it doesn't exist during your time, you can't ever rule it out totally. And here's another book from a skeptic who has all kinds of different sources from the 1500s, 1600s. Be interesting to check out some of those books. But in this one he refers to two unicorns that were in Mecca. It seems like they were shown as kind of an attraction. One was about 2.5 years old, the other one was 1, and the 2.5-year-old was really big. And apparently it was a gift sent to the Sultan of Mecca from the King of Ethiopia. They say it was weasel-colored, with a head like a heart, but no long neck, thin mane hanging only on one side, slender legs, and the feet of a goat. Now this one talks about another name for it called the Catesius, or in India it was called the Carcazonon. So it was a full-size grown horse with a mane, yellow woolly hair of extreme swiftness, with a black horn growing between the eyebrows, which is not smooth but with natural convolutions and very sharp at the point. It emits loud, discordant sounds, lives peaceably with other animals but quarrels with those of its own kind, the males even destroying the females, excepting it during the breeding season, at which time the animals are gregarious, but at other times they live in solitude in barren tracts. The Monoceros is endued with great strength and is armed with an invincible horn. And although the author is skeptical, he still relates stories from Tibet that said that the animals were fierce and exceedingly wild and seldom taken alive but frequently shot, and that they are frequently to be met with on the borders of the Great Desert about a mile from Lhasa. From a drawing which accompanied Major Ladder's communication, the presumed unicorn was something like a horse, but with cloven hoofs, a long curved horn growing out of the forehead, and a boar-shaped tail. Now this one is referring to Pliny's account of the Indian ass, which they think might have been the unicorn back then, and Aristotle as well as some other Indians who referred to the animal as having a single horn 2 cubits long projecting from the middle of its forehead. They say this animal cannot be taken alive. I love that. I also found a book with a description of a unicorn from New Netherlands, 1671, and this is the area pretty much New York up to Canada, all over kind of the New England area, which is where I'm from and where I grew up, so I find this very cool. I'd love to find a unicorn horn somewhere buried. But either way, New Netherlands, in this book that I found, they took a lot of accounts of the animals that they encountered, because this was apparently new to them, and they talk about the unicorn. This text states that on the borders of Canada, animals are now and again seen somewhat resembling a horse. They have cloven hoofs, shaggy manes, a horn right out of the forehead, a tail like that of the wild hog, black eyes, a stag's neck, and love the gloomiest wildernesses, are shy of each other so that the male never feeds with the female except when they associate for purposes of increase. Then they lay aside their ferocity as soon as the rutting season is past. They again not only become wild, but even attack their own. Here's a great book talking about the unicorn horn, and right off the bat go into how profitable it is, which is a sign of extinction, but also talk about the mystery and how some people were passing narwhal horns off as unicorn horns, and a lot of people were being very charlatan about it and claiming medicinal properties. A lot of different countries, those stories got out that it protects against poison, convulsions, epilepsy, and falling sickness. So they very well may have had medicinal properties. A lot of different sources refer to it as that, and once a population kind of thinks that, they do anything in their power to get it, and especially if they think it keeps them healthy, or if they have a problem and it might be able to heal it, whereas nothing else can. That's a big problem that's happening with the pangolins today. Definitely stop and take a closer look at some of these texts. They are very interesting. This one in particular talks about how the people were confusing the unicorn for the rhinoceros, which seems a little ridiculous, and this is kind of about when I started to suspect that there was a kind of conscious effort to denounce the unicorn. Like maybe they just took it too far. Maybe it was this great beast that they just destroyed and eliminated, and they didn't want further generations knowing that for profit they just killed this beautiful magical animal with so many amazing powers. So they started telling the story, oh, maybe it was a myth, I think there was just this, or blah blah blah, you know, to devalue those horns that were already out there and do all different kinds of things, you know, stop people from ever really knowing that this animal existed, which is a part of the coat of arms and so much amazing art throughout time. It's impossible. I mean, nowadays they're almost slamming it in our faces with all the unicorn propaganda and weird things that they put on people's clothing, kids stuff, and the way they're turning it into just all kinds of different, just a gimmick really. But back then, you know, it might have been the same thing. It might have suffered a fate of obsession. People may have just been obsessed, and then they hunted them down. People, like armies, probably, you know, forced them into things, and then soon enough there's none left and the population's dead, and you have an extinct animal. Like, has happened so many times and is happening today. And these are some amazing artworks. I love these. This book has some incredible stuff. In the horn, a lot of descriptions. It shows all different kinds of other animals that have similar horns. You know, there's different, so many animals have horns for defense purposes, or, you know, to show prominence, or who knows. A lot of things could have even come from this, like fencing, all different kinds of ideas that relate to this horn and how they saw it. And they may have seen two animals battling out and come up with fencing or jousting. And you know, these animals, nature has a way of doing things, and all of these things have a purpose. There's definitely reason to believe that nature would have evolved a giant horned being. Why not? A lot of these pictures also show people that have horns, and I saw a Greek coin the other day at my house that actually showed one of these people with horns, and it's very interesting. I'm not sure if that was real. Those were mutilations, additions, mutations, you never know. This whole thing is also very cool. I find the tower, I did a Tower of Babel video before, but the horn, the unicorn horn and the Tower of Babel have some interestingly weird connection. I'm not really sure exactly what it is. There are so many objects that form this shape, and the thermometer is also one of them. They put mercury inside it, and the different senses, outer senses, increase or decrease the flow. You know, there's different towers, there's different spears, swords, javelins, all kinds of different things. And the narwhal horn is one of the most popular that we do know for a fact exists. And this all reminds me very similar of the white rhino, the African white rhino, and a lot of other animals that we, in our lifetime, are going extinct. We're witnessing the extinction of these, and people are killing them for their horns. There are some people that are taking off the horns and storing them, and just so other people can't get them, and they're removing them safely because there's a safe way and there's a way that just kills the animal, which is probably what happened in the past to the unicorns. And this is my keystone rhino drawing, which shows how important it is. All these different life forms of the plains rely on the rhinoceros for sustenance and to live. They eat off, they feed each other, they are part of the same ecosystem. It's a keystone species. The unicorn might have well been one of these as well. The pangolin, another amazing thing that's happening now. What a magnificent animal. Existed for so long, so many different forms, so many different species. It can turn into a ball and protect itself. It's strong, just like the unicorn. You know, they said it was indestructible almost, but this isn't. It's very small. It can be captured. One of the, I think it's some country over in the Indonesia claimed, one of the kings claimed that it cured him of cancer. So now they started massacring these things by the millions and trying to make medicine out of them. And they are making a species that had millions worldwide now become extinct in a matter of a few years, all because of this fairy tale kind of ridiculousness for profit. And Hieronymus Bosch, another kind of glimpse at the Garden of Earthly Delights. This is a painting from the 1400s, an amazing one. I did a version of it too, which is a little happier. But he's got a unicorn in this, in the upper left corner of the Eden part. The unicorn's drinking from the water. And there's a lot of magical things here, and Bosch knew some amazing stuff. But, you know, it's totally, there's a couple of different giraffes and rhinoceros and elephants, all animals that we know existed, and the unicorn is always with them. There's always so many different animals that are purely real that we know of exist, and then there's the unicorn. So why would they add this mythical thing into it? Like, why wouldn't there be a mythical cat that's in all these pictures, or a mythical beaver or something? No, it's the horse, it's the unicorn. There's something about it that they were not telling us in the past. They knew. They lived with these things. They were maybe intelligent. Maybe that unicorn horn was a calcified, or not non-calcified, a pure pineal gland extension, and their third eye was just beaming. This is our love mandala, drawing by me and my wife, which has symbolism of male and female throughout time, and the unicorn is a big symbol of that up towards the top. These symbols were around in art. They are very symbolic. They mean stuff. They're representative. They're metaphorical for so many different potential things. But so are all animals. Animals, they're spirit animals, and they have a purpose, and you can learn so much from observing them. There is no telling what we could have learned from this wonderful animal if we were still allowed to observe it in its prime on Earth, in the land, and with its family, with its friends, with its culture, with its world, with its surroundings, with its nature. I bet you we would learn a lot about ourselves, the world around us, and the people of the past, which is what we need to discover. Have a great one.